Welcome into this month's version of the NACMA Zoom. We're going to talk about what it's like to brand your city for the big event. I'm Jacob Dye. I'm the Assistant Athletic Director for Marketing and Fan Experience here at Kennesaw State University. And we have the pleasure of hosting Nicole Robinson. But first, just give a quick introduction for Scott, and then we'll get right into it.
Scott Nelson, Senior Associate Director of Athletics at Minnesota State University, and looking forward to today's conversation.
And then obviously, Nicole, we're so excited to have you with us. Nicole, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and how you landed into the position you're in now.
Yeah, I'd love to. Nicole Robinson, Kansas City Sports Commission and Foundation. So I'm the Director of Business Development and National Events. So to kind of give a brief synopsis of what that means, I'm on our events team. So we work a lot on trying to bring events to Kansas City and then kind of going out there and trying to expose our community to different activities and events on the business development side, as well as once they're here, kind of servicing them. But at the Sports Commission, to kind of level set about like our background and kind of how we got here, we're a nonprofit, so we're separate from a lot of our other CVBs in other cities. So we actually own and operate some of our own events that we get to market, and so we have our own marketing team as well. And then also kind of service the national events where we're working with our event organizers. So we are completely funded separately from our CVBs, though we work hand in hand, and I think we'll talk about it a little bit later on, hand in hand with our CVBs and the people in our community to kind of help elevate our city and bring those events here. I have been, oh goodness, with the Sports Commission since the fall of 2017. So we have seen a lot of things and a lot of changes in Kansas City. So it's been a wild ride. And I don't think we ever stopped to take a breath. We've just been busy like nonstop. I arrived here from San Francisco, where I worked at a conference office out there playing championships. But originally from Colorado, was a student athlete in college, played volleyball. So kind of been all over the place, but have found a nice home here in Kansas City and have been sticking around since then. So
Well, Nicole, we're so grateful that you're able to spend time with us. And obviously, you're right. Kansas City is, it's full of tourism, it's full of city pride. And like you said, you're hosting so many things there, not just small, but even major events. So let's just jump right into it. Let's talk about what branding your city for big moments looks like. Obviously, you've got a big thing coming up. We'll address the elephant in the room and kind of like how you're preparing for that from a branding perspective.
yeah, I think a lot of it is kind of started, everything kind of takes years in advance. Like a lot of the stuff that I think we're seeing come to fruition has taken a lot of behind the scenes for years. Whether it's like the FIFA World Cup that we're hosting in 2026, where we started working on that back in 2017 and kind of laying the groundwork for that. Or it was, when we hosted the NFL draft, we've had some celebrations in our city as well, a variety of things, but really kind of working with the stakeholders in our community to kind of put our best foot forward and see what is it about Kansas City. When I first arrived here, I was blown away by the sense of community with Red Fridays. We have things called Red Friday that happens all throughout the Chiefs season, but really to kind of kick off this season, the town is decked out in red. I had never seen anything like it. We had Chiefs logos painted everywhere. Our fountains had turned red. And I've come from large cities, San Francisco, Chicago, Denver, and had never really seen that same kind of fandom and like really uniting as a community behind a team. So it's been a wild ride, and obviously we've had a lot of success with our sports teams lately, and so I think that's helped as well. But it's just been such a huge thing from the community and the pride aspect, and then we've come together in the last 2 years too to kind of roll out like what is Kansas City known for?
Mhm.
We have a lot of, I think, jazz. We all know about jazz, and we have a great like little arts district at 18th and Vine. We have barbecue, which we're all aware of, especially with some Chiefs games and tailgating with Royals. And then we're also a city of fountains. So we have, I think, the most amount of fountains next to, oh goodness, I don't know the exact, I'm drawing a blank on the next city, but like we have a ton of fountains here. So like,
Oh.
what is our brand identity? And we've kind of really leaned into the past few years from the heart. And so being in the heart of the country, here, the heart of Midwest, We're 3 hours from either coast via airplane, and I think we have 55 million people within driving distance of a day. So really kind of leaning from the heart, we're passionate about our city and want to kind of showcase that when we have visitors come in as well.
Nicole, you talk about kind of the evolution of Kansas City and how it's grown to be a destination. When we spoke last week, I'm old enough, I guess, to remember Kansas City was basically known for the Big Eight tournament, right? Back in the day, the Chiefs and the Royals. But ever since the auditorium became probably the #2 facility in town, and you built the new arena down there, it's really kind of evolved on events that are taking place there day after day. Just talk about the resurgence and what that auditorium brought to Kansas City in terms of helping you guys market the city as a whole.
Yeah, I was fortunate. So T-Mobile Center came online as Sprint Center back in 2007, and they are a fantastic venue to work with. They're great community partners. But I think having that space, we have 18,000 for capacity, so a little bit bigger than municipal auditorium, which love the history of it. Love it's hosted a lot of great events and a lot of great people. But having T-Mobile Center down there really kind of revitalized the area. And I'd say even since I've just been down here, the amount of people that are moving downtown, and we have grocery stores downtown. We have Power and Light District, which is like our entertainment district that's right down there. And in the last probably 10 years, we added a streetcar. So it's the free streetcar that goes up and down our city. And we've had expansions, and they'll open up later in 2025 that connects our plaza, so our shopping district, a little bit further south of the city, up to the river market. And so really T-Mobile Center has been kind of like that key stakeholder. It's kind of helped elevate everything. It's brought a lot of people down. It's brought so many new events. And you talk about Big Eight, and so we just recently had Big 12 women were playing and competing at Municipal up until last year, and they just moved over to T-Mobile Center. So now we have 2 weeks of Big 12 basketball with men and women in a state-of-the-art facility. They don't have a tenant, that stays there long term, which is great too, because it allows us to have a lot of flexibility with the events that we bring into Kansas City. But they bring in a variety of different things, and I think it's really impacted our downtown, and it allowed more people to come and experience walkability. We've had a lot more growth with our hotels, and just the entertainment in general.
I guess I have one quick follow-up on that. We're at Minnesota State, we're a Division II school, but we have Division I hockey, and the city owns our arena downtown that we play in. Talk about the collaboration maybe you guys have, and how partnerships can look to build on that relationship between the city and external users to continue bringing events down there day after day and make the experience great for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what I think we pride ourselves in is just the collaboration with our city and the external stakeholders. So whether it's at T-Mobile Center, and working with them to try and find fits that work in their event spaces, or whether it's municipal. Municipal auditorium is just 3 blocks west of T-Mobile Center, a great venue, hosts NAI men's basketball championships. It hosts MIAA men's and women's basketball championships and a variety of other things. So kind of really trying to find ways to find the venues, work with them, and kind of get the events in there. But it really takes everyone. It's not just the sports commission or just Visit Casey or just the venue or just the city. Like, I think we've really been successful because we found out what we're all really good at and kind of working together to work towards that one common goal of, okay, we need to bring this, or let's bring this event here. We look to bring Rugby World Cup to Kansas City for 2031 and 2033, working with that community. And our mayor is very excited about the potential of having rugby, but what other rugby events can we bring here? So I think working with all those different entities and then kind of expanding outside of just the Kansas City region, but like talk about partnerships and branding and like sponsorships, but working with our local businesses that are based here in Kansas City too, like, hey, you guys give back to the area. A lot of our events have legacy projects as well, or ways to kind of, give back to the community as a thank you, whether it's through the environment or books or elementary schools, different things like that.
Nicole, y'all have so much going on. And it takes a lot to bring this together, but you also have this external focus of, all right, who is our audience going to be? Talk to us a little bit about how you focus on not just the fans of what's coming into town, but your local communities. I mean, even like you said, with rugby and obviously with other major events coming into town, like international audiences. How do you target those individuals from a branding and an advertising perspective?
Mhm. So Visit KC, they have a role over there that does a lot of just international focus. So a lot of their focus is just traveling overseas, and especially with hosting FIFA World Cup, expecting a large influx of international people coming to Kansas City and anticipating that because we're kind of in the middle of the country, we might see a lot of those visitors come because it's a quick trip from either side, depending on where they want to go. So working with groups across the country, or, across the globe, and working with their marketing teams and helping. It was really cool, actually. We host the Garmin Kansas City Marathon in the fall, so it's an event that we own and operate at the Sports Commission. And there's actually people from Germany that were coming over to Kansas City to run in it. And so, like, they had the Kansas City shirts on at the airport, and they were posting on social media. And it was just like really cool, the reach of marketing and the word of mouth and how we utilize those. I think it's also fascinating too, this um, social media. You guys probably know it more than I do, but just the impact of social media and like these ambassadors and influencers and their reach, and how they can help be extensions of your marketing office. So, if you're a small staff of 2 or 1, you know, that's a lot for you guys to try and market, for us to market. But if you have ambassadors and influencers that are working on your behalf, and they have huge reaches, like that's nice too. So.
Yeah, that's actually a great transition into my question here is, obviously, having a small team, but you are going to rely on so many external factors. What does it look like when you're going after ambassadors? How do you utilize these ambassadors and even some of the influencers to help you with real-time marketing?
Yeah, I can speak from our experience with our marathon and finding ambassadors. So I think, the interesting thing is, how do you continue to grow our marathon? And I think we're well known here in Kansas City, but how do we expand that network, and how do you get more runners? We're not the Bostons or the New Yorks in the world of marathon runs, but how do we grow that? And so finding those influencers that are popular in those spaces and in the running community, and um, finding collaborations and working with them, and how many times do they post, and the exchanges and things like that. So that's a whole new world that we've kind of been dabbling in the last few years and trying to experience influencers and what that looks like. So I it's never, never staying the same. It's always evolving, and how do you stay on top of those marketing trends, and which platform works best, and how are you targeting those people, like whether it's, through Facebook and those Facebook ads, and the reach of those people. And we were just having discussions. What is it like to go to events in person and try and market your events? Is that beneficial? Are people signing up because of you're attending their expo, or are they just signing up on their own because they found it online? And then you're not having to put the staff cost to go travel somewhere, so like pros and cons of the best way to market these events.
What's the methodology, I guess, is the best way to put it, for kind of identifying your target audience? With so many, moving more from a regional, like the Big Eight was, to more national and now international competitions. How do you help identify what that reach is and what that audience looks like as you prepare for not maybe 1 or 2 events a year, but 1 or 2 events, a day, or 3, 4 events a weekend?
We were actually just talking about that internally last week, that we're involved in so many different events that require so many different needs, and how do you market that? So with our marketing team and just us as a staff in general, each event has their own requirements, right? So they all have their own market. So are we really focused on families right now for a certain event? Or are we focused on maybe middle-aged men that are willing to travel and spend some money and drink some beer at some of our events? Like, where are we targeting these people? Do we need to Are a lot of them traveling from outside to come to our events? Or is this event mostly drawing from local folks that we want to kind of showcase Kansas City to and give them an opportunity to experience a new event? Um, So we've really kind of just like weighed the pros and cons of the best way to market it. So we have some events right now where a lot of it is just local grassroots marketing. And so we're just showing up at different club events or youth events to help promote those events that we have coming up, which would be good. Or is it the larger events where you look at like an NFL draft and we hosted that in 2023, and you're expecting some people to come in and travel. And so I think some of those events market themselves a little bit easier than others. You're not having to put a ton of dollars towards marketing an NFL draft because it kind of speaks for itself. Or are you trying to really play up our local markets with, hey, how do we target someone that is a female runner, enjoys these activities? We have Win for KC, which is a branch of our sports commission that focuses all on women in sports. And so how do we engage, like one of the big conversations we have now is like we're really tapped into the youth market because we have a camp that we host for them that does really well, and it allows girls like ages like 6 to 12 to experience 14 different sports throughout a week.
Oh,
Really allows them to kind of dabble in different things. And we have a lot of stuff for maybe older women, but like how do we find the middle group? Like, and what is the best way to market and how do we reach them? And we found like right now we're being really successful with word of mouth. And so just having kind of like those ambassadors, they're not social media ambassadors, but just people that we know and work with and just share, hey, we have this event to talk about, let's talk football. And so you can learn about football because football's big in our city, but if you don't know what we're watching, we don't know what we're doing, then it's not quite as fun. So how do we kind of get that like young mom age group where we can kind of bring them in and they can kind of find their niche too and go from there. So I don't
well,
know if that answered. There's like a whole variety. Like I feel like
Nailed it. You
every
nailed
event
it.
is so different.
well, you're under immense pressure, Nicole. I mean, obviously, hosting any type of major sporting event or any kind of event, really, there's a level of having to maintain positive CD branding, obviously from an internal perspective, but you're also managing expectations of the external folks coming into town. Talk to us a little bit about how in a way, manage those expectations internally and externally.
Yeah, I mean, I joke, I feel like I have a lot of people I report to because there's just so many different key stakeholders and event owners. I think one of the biggest things too, like we talk about marketing and like showcasing like your city or what you're known for. I want to make sure our fans have a great time when they're coming in here because if they don't have a good time, they're going to go out and tell everyone, I went to Kansas City and it was not fun. I want them going back home and be like, we're coming back to Kansas City. I didn't spend enough time there. Like we have great arts. We have all these different, sporting venues. We've pumped a ton of money into a brand new airport terminal in the last 2 years to really kind of set the stage from when you land in Kansas City. This is what we're about. We have the free streetcar that you can take up and down. So it's managing a lot. But the good thing is it's not just me and my team at the sports commission. Like it truly is from the moment we talk about this all the time, from our hotels to our restaurants to our transportation to our parking to our venues. Hey, let's make sure we're really putting our best foot forward. And when an event comes to town, we strive to make sure that event knows that they're here, they're making an impact, whether it's the street pole banners or whether it's decals that welcome them at restaurants or on our hotels, different things like that, that everyone knows that they're in town and they're important and they are important. Like we value your event coming here, we value the fans coming here. We want you guys to have a great time. And we're really excited to showcase why Kansas City is, a poppin' place that is really kind of making its name throughout the world. But it truly is a team effort because you do feel like there's a lot of eyes on you. And, um, you know, it's kind of almost like a domino effect. Like, how do we just make sure that we're all on the same team and we're not, when one goes, it doesn't impact all of us, that we can kind of help fix it and make sure that everyone has a good experience from start to finish.
You talk a little bit about the infrastructure and collaboration, and from afar, it's been a little while since I've been to Kansas City last, but it appears that a lot of infrastructure has been updated down there. And talk about, you know, hey, if we want to get A, B, C, and D to Kansas City, we need A through G to be updated here in town, and talk about that process and how that collaboration works, not just only with maybe city stakeholders, but local universities and things like that. As more events come, you need more practice gyms, all that kind of stuff. Just
Yeah.
talk about that kind of collaboration.
Yeah, we got 16 teams for Big 12 and I need places to practice, so I need gyms. So yeah, absolutely. I think on the bigger scale, like our airport, if you haven't been to Kansas in the last 2 years, we've got a brand new single terminal airport that they pumped a ton of money into. It's great. It's a really nice welcome to our city. The other one, as much as I enjoyed it, it was just a little bit old and outdated and didn't have the amenities that everyone was accustomed to at an airport. Um, we talked about T-Mobile Center and upgrading those facilities and having that venue come on, and then the streetcar expansion. We have, I think, in the last 15 years, the region has invested more than $600 million in soccer facilities, I think. And so that includes our brand new CPKC Stadium, that it's home to our KC Current. And so that allows us to bring a variety of new events here because we have Sporting KC or MLS Stadium, we have CPKC Stadium, and then we have Arrowhead. And so kind of a variety of sizes and attendance that we can have. But on the smaller scale, working with our universities, right? We're fortunate to have Mizzou and Columbia not too far away to kind of partner with. We have MIAA conference, and so they're based in Hy-Vee Arena, which is our old Kemper Arena, which is now has a bunch of basketball courts and space there. So a lot of opportunity for us to utilize that space there and kind of help out. UMKC, so University of Missouri Kansas City is right down the street, and so working with them to find if they have facilities that we can use or they have soccer facilities. So when we have someone come in for soccer, like, can we send them to UMKC for an option? Or is there our friends at Rockhurst right down there too that have great facilities? And how do we kind of help them on their own campuses stay up to date, or help them with um, maybe fundraising or coming up with like, hey, if we're going to build a new space, this is what would be great in it, instead of just not consulting with everyone. Like, hey, right now we're seeing that we need to have 4 locker rooms with so many bathrooms, because you have to have officials locker rooms and drug testing and everything that you would need to be able to host an event, because there's nothing worse than like building a building and finding out that you can't host anything because we missed the ball and we dropped the ball. We have KU that's down the road, and we have William Jewell. So we're fortunate to have a lot of different universities and colleges to kind of collaborate with. So whether it's hosting on campus with their facilities, or here in the city with some of our city owned venues as well. But the infrastructure is super important, because if we don't have the options or the availability to kind of host these events, then we don't get that opportunity. But we're fortunate where we have a lot of different options. If it doesn't work here, maybe we try the puzzle piece over here and it works.
I want to flip it kind of the other way. You're a young, aspiring college marketing professional in Mankato, Minnesota. Starting your job and you're hosting a tournament. You're going to host A, B, and C tournament coming up at the end of the semester. What steps should that individual take to work with their city to make sure that everything's covered on their end, and form a partnership that maybe is either lacking or non-existent or still in the blossoming phases, to make sure that event goes off smoothly?
Oh, that's a good question. I think first off, man, kudos to you for like, stepping up there and hosting those events and kind of putting those together. I think having that first initial conversation is so key, and like introducing yourself and meeting them, because I think so much of it is based on conversations. And I will just say, like, even though maybe one door doesn't open right away, it doesn't mean that that person isn't thinking of you, or that venue isn't thinking of you a little bit later on when you need to, maybe have another event. Um, but a lot of it, I would just be like working with your event owner, whether they have RFPs and going through the checklist of what's needed to host their event, and what what Mankato can provide. Like, what does your city offer? What are you guys really good at? Like, what can we really promote and tout and be like, this is why you need to have your event here. We have these hotel rooms. We have this, staffing. We have our students in our sports management program or our sports marketing program are really invested in trying to make this event succeed. So we have volunteers built in. Like, we can help you from the ground up with all these different things. And just having like putting together a budget. How can we help with the advertising, the marketing? We're really good at social media. Do you guys own and operate a billboard that we could use, or do you have radio spots that we can tap into in exchange? Maybe we have the option to give you tickets or something like that. But what do we have that's value and kind that's maybe not costing us dollars on the front end that we can be creative with? And I think that's one of the things that we always talk about is a nonprofit. We don't have tons and tons of money, as most people don't. We're all trying to kind of pinch pennies and count everything. So how are we being creative with what we're doing?
Yeah. So this next question is like, obviously you do so much planning for these events, and last minute things are going to pop up. How do y'all handle those internally when you're hosting a major event? And like, how do you get over I guess the legacy road bump per se?
I think when I was younger, they would stress me out more. Now I just anticipate that something's going to happen and we're just going to have to pivot quickly. And experiences taught me that we just figure stuff out on the fly, and that's okay. Um, I think it kind of goes back to that community of, okay, something happened. How do we overcome it? Who do we know that we can kind of help connect the pieces, help us problem solve? What is, in the grand scheme of things, I'm sure we're all having things that go askew and not according to plan, but how do we make it so that maybe our fans don't necessarily know or don't have the impact, and like let's keep it behind the scenes, behind the curtain. But I think constantly just running, I always like to run through scenarios of like what's potentially going to happen, and um how do we pivot. But goodness, I'm sure you guys all know too, working in college athletics, that there's just always something that pops up. Like you're the
Every day.
masters at just pivoting and making do with what you have, and making it work and be really, really good. So um yeah, I think it truly is a team effort, and we all rally around each other and kind of come up with solutions. And sometimes it's much faster, like, hey, we need something right now, and then we just make it happen. And you kind of are like, okay, we'll think, think through this. As long as everyone's safe and we're paying attention to safety, like we're all good. So
One last question for me. As athletics continues to become more and more of a revenue generation animal, and it becomes more and more important, um, how do you balance opportunities and those relationships when you're working with a partner on an event, and a school in town or another partner in town is working with the same partner in an event, to make sure you're not over tapping those wells and making sure that everybody gets a piece of their pie, but you're also not force feeding or forcing too much of the issue on the partner, so you can continue those relationships.
yeah, I think that's a great question. Thankfully, I feel like usually when we're working with bids or trying to bring things to Kansas City, always having that communication, just like, hey, we're looking at hosting this. Like, would you guys be interested in helping? And maybe a school or a conference is like, no, hey, we can't. That doesn't work for our calendar right now. It's like, okay, so we'll pivot somewhere else. Um, I think it's finding everyone's strengths and knowing like, hey, at a university, they have this to offer, and I don't have that same, like, I'm going to use athletic trainers. Like schools have athletic trainers as if they weren't busy enough hosting all their own teams and everything like that. But like I don't have athletic trainers, or if we have someone that's really focused on SID and helping with like stats and knows the inner workings of the sport, that may be helpful. And so maybe how do we complement each other to kind of put our best foot forward, and just working together. I never want to, this would be horrible, like, but go ahead and put a bid on and say, hey, we're gonna have this school or this conference like be our host with us, and then they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, no, we didn't agree to this. Like we can't staff that fully, or we can't do this. So what can we offer? And I think we are fortunate where we've kind of established like our little area that we're really good at, and this is what we're looking for. And I think when our schools are trying to find support, they know to come to us for volunteer support, event support, marketing assistance, and a variety of different things where we can kind of tag team it together and put together a good event and a good bid.
Well, Nicole, we greatly appreciate you being here with us today. what is one piece of advice that you would leave our NACMA community with when it comes to preparing for the major events?
Ooh. Um, I feel like it's just communication, right? Like, so, um, I think communication is huge, and making sure that you have the right people at the right time, around the table, and communicating, because whether it's communicating about like what could possibly go wrong, like something hiccuped, we got the wrong shirts, like the shirts came with the wrong colors, or whatever, what have you. I would say communication is so important, and just like the networking side of it, of just like meeting people and kind of staying in contact, and it truly is a team effort. So I think, um, putting your best foot forward, and working with others, because to be successful and to, I think, bring in these big events, you have to have, I think that's why you have these larger cities like Miami, and yeah, y- I'm drawing a blank, like New Orleans. All these places are continually hosting events because they have a strong history of being successful with those. And I think that's because they have to have a good team working behind the scenes. So I would say communication is important.
Awesome.
So
Well, Nicole, our marketing community is so thankful for your time today. And obviously, this is so great for so many others, young professionals and even pros here in the collegiate marketing space to hear about your journey and what it's like to bring on the big events, not just in one city, but holistically. Just a reminder for everybody, registration for NACMA convention will go live on February 25th at noon Eastern. So be sure to mark your calendars and register for the convention in Orlando. We will see y'all there.